Dr. Neeta Bhushan is a former cosmetic dentist turned best-selling author, international speaker, social entrepreneur, and the advocate of mental health and emotional health. She's also a leadership coach. Now, she has an incredible story. She left her $1 million dentistry practice to pursue a quest for self-discovery. And that journey saw her spend over 15 years, over 45 countries, researching and immersing herself in the field of human behavior dynamics, as well as studying the works of classical philosophers and modern psychology. Her pursuit of personal transformation and interpersonal psychology is sparked by her own life experience to overcoming multiple extreme adversities, which includes being orphaned at a young age, losing her mother, father, and brother in the span of a year, surviving an abusive marriage of domestic violence, and facing even homelessness. Neeta's approach seamlessly blends the emotional grit and extreme resilience she developed to overcome her own personal adversities, along with her own research in human behavior dynamics. The power of her coaching, books, and speaking globally has transformed the lives of thousands across the world, including mine, and has set the bar for a new form of emotional leadership. Enjoy this episode. You'll learn a lot about yourself and how to create audacious resilience. Hey, Neeta.
Hey, Queen.
I'm so happy I get to have you at my table now.
I'm so excited.
I've been on Neeta's podcast, The Brave Table, and it is such an incredible podcast. And I just feel so happy and honored that you're here sitting in this chair and I get to talk to you about all the cool things Femmefluence.
I know. So fancy. I love it. I'm embracing it all.
Yay. So the short version of defining Femmefluence for me is what's your superpower, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, what's yours?
Wow. I would say connection. I would say connection and mastering the art of joy with resilience.
I see that in you because this woman has had recently an incredible best-selling book called That Sucked, Now What? It's so good that I actually bought tons of copies to give to nonprofits here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Neeta was an incredible donor and sponsor to the Femmefluence signature event that we just had. So I'm so grateful. And this book is changing lives because it sounds like to me you put your Femmefluence into this book. So tell me about, where did that Femmefluence come from? When were you first aware of it, that connection and the ability to move through resilience and still find joy in all of it? What's the origin story of that?
There's so many. There's so many, but I have to start with, I remember being 14 years old, maybe 14 or 15, young teen, growing up. My mom was Filipino, my dad was Indian, so you got the mix of the two. My mom was Ilocano too.
Hey, baby.
So, and she was going through a really tough time. I was a child caretaker at the age of 10 because she had breast cancer. And that, in a family where connection, community, and what you say communion is so big, we were still doing piano lessons on the weekends. We were still doing recitals, ballet. I mean, all of it, the Filipino dance competition, the banco, the tinikling, all of the things. And she was going through, there was a time where it got really dark and she spent more time in the hospital. But I just remember we would still have family parties and we would still have people coming. And Filipino families, it's everyone came to the hospital.
Oh yeah. It's overwhelming.
But playing the guitar and singing and karaoke, and we were, because all the Filipino nurses, they were Filipino.
Yes, bringing food, making bibingka, all the things. Yeah.
And so we were able to have community even during a really dark time. And then that just led up to, then she transitioned when I was 16. And and that's really when, my era of resilience started, because then I would lose my brother a year later, really tragically. And then 2 years after that, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so during those really pivotal years where,
wow,
as a teenager, all you want to do is fit in. All you want to do is, you don't want to be the oddball out.
Right.
And you're kind of like, what? I don't want to be the person talking about death all the time. Like, I just want to fit in. And it was dark. It was rough because I had to support my family. I had to get, there were times where I was working like 3 jobs to take care of my youngest brother. So it was a lot. But during those really hard moments of resilience, there was definitely this season of, all right, everyone's coming over. And that's what it was. So my through line has always been relationships. And that then, kind of spearheaded to 10 years later when I was in a really tumultuous relationship, which was my first marriage. And one of the things that I didn't do well was my love life.
Same.
I didn't do that well.
In the 4 areas of life, right? Health, wealth, self, and relationships. Relationships was my poorest score. And we don't like getting Bs. We don't get Bs, right? But so we hide that. Like, oh, that's not a real score.
We like put it in the closet. And friendships were great for me, but the love relationships, like I clung on to probably anybody that gave me love.
Oh yeah.
And that would be the biggest growth edge for me. So I found myself, late in my 20s. I had already I was a cosmetic dentist, owned my practice, did all of the things like, channeling the ghosts of my parents, like, are you guys proud of me?
Yeah.
Made my first $1 million in that way. And yet I was like scared of my life. And so my journey then began when I left my home, like haphazardly in the middle of the night, December 31st, 2011.
Wow.
This was probably maybe 2 years before I met you. And that would fully shift because I needed to say, I need help.
Wow.
And that help began this trajectory of letting people in, not just to have fun, but also to cry, scream, moan, and just get super vulnerable because it was all of that grief that I didn't really process for a whole decade.
Yeah. And how could you were a child when it all happened? You had to be an adult in a child's growing body.
It's true.
And then become an adult. Obviously still getting A's because girlfriend became a cosmetic dentist. Definitely made your mom and daddy proud no matter what. Right? And then to be in that love relationship that didn't serve you in any way except for the lessons that you're now able to share with all of us through your books, through your podcast, through the way you live your life now. So joyful. And sucky moments. I mean, you have a toddler and a baby.
Yeah.
And a marriage, and like, it's kind of funny, right? Because how do you feel? I bet a lot of people think your life looks like aces or spades all the time now, right?
Oh my gosh.
And even though you're telling them it's not, they don't believe you. Can you talk more about that?
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. So like coming out on the other side of, like hardcore, like dark shit trauma.
Yeah.
And then to kind of dive into the world of personal growth and taking personal responsibility and forgiveness and, gratitude, all of these things that really, really kind of, add to our Femmefluence in the ways that, we're able to build businesses, right? But also it's kind of like, all right, business is one category. But then for me, and I think even a lot of what you talk about as well, is it crosses over.
Oh, yeah.
Like if my personal life is not good, and that's when I met Ajit, and when we met, at first I was like, no, I don't know if this is going to work out. Because I was just, again, my own fears. And I think a lot of us very, strong, independent women, we kind of fear that we're going to lose ourselves in relationship. And so we were really intentional when we got together, because this was both our second marriages, that we were going to do things differently. And it's not easy because we're confronting the stuff that usually we'll shove under a rug. And even in this season, it's probably why I wrote this book, That Suck Now What, How to Embrace the Joy and Chaos and Find Magic in the Mess, because it is to know all of the things, to practice all of the things, and actually be kind of public facing about stuff. And we're the ones we're like, we'll walk the talk. We're not just gonna And so there were things where, you know, he was like, are we really going to do this? Okay, then we have to have support, and we have to, like, we've got to really face our demons, and what are some of our, you know, the shadows that keep coming up. And it's not, you know, it's not all roses and fairies. And, you know, there are times where he's just like, okay, we're going through this right now. All right, like, let's brace ourselves. But I think it's also being honest with each other, because he also has a really big career, and a lot of the things that we work many times in tandem together. But it's really being able to, for me to see, okay, what does he actually need right now? And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of pushing him over the edge, and for me to catch that, and many times I don't. And for him to say, like, we've actually created safe words where I'm like, all right, Hakuna Matata, like, we're not going to solve this today.
Yeah.
So we're going to shelf this. And then he's just really good about, all right, yeah, okay, so we shelved it. Like, let's bring it up again and let's go into it. And I think it's easy for people to think, oh, you know, they're just living the life. It's hard AF to take our kids with us in all the places.
Yeah.
We just had a book launch, and I did take them
You're
to New
still
York.
in it.
And I'm still in it. The book has only been out for a month. And he's like, why are we doing this? Like, he's more logical than me, and I'm like living a fairy tale. I'm like, yeah, but I think it'd be great to take the kids to New York. And he's like, no, love, you're taking them out of their comfort zone. And so then we'll get into it. But I'm like, because I have my mom guilt.
Right.
I want to bring them.
Oh, yes, that mom guilt. Ugh, yes. Being an ambitious mom. Ooh, being a mom is ambitious in itself. And then you add our, you know, needing to get an A+ in everything we do in life. Not because of our cultural makeup, just because we were probably born this way anyway. Because I always say, like, if I wasn't a Filipino, would I still be this? I think that's what would have happened to me. I would have been that person no matter what my ethnicity, but it doesn't help that, you know, that Asian guilt, that Asian influence. You know, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer.
It's that pressure.
Yeah, all that pressure. Even being entrepreneurs is so rebellious for Asian culture.
Oh my God, it's not safe.
It's not.
It's not safe. It's like, wait, you're not working at the airport.
I gotta tell you,
you're not an accountant.
I love my mom, and she's probably watching this, and she still doesn't really know what I do. Like, there's parts where she's like, she'll come to my house, and this has been the past 15 years since I left the corporate world, and she's like, is this all legal? Like, what you're doing? Like, how do you make money? I'm like, Mom, just like any other consultant, advisor, you know, they make money by providing value through services. That's basically what we do.
Nope, don't get it.
But they're like, something must be fishy, because you can't have nice things and not be, you must be a doctor to have nice things. Yes. You must be that kind of thing. Right.
Yes.
So.
Oh my God. Well, there's some people in my family, they're like, what? You don't do, you sure you don't do dentistry anymore? I'm like, no.
I know, the shame.
The shame. And then apparently because I just made it because I was on local TV from my hometown in Chicago. So that meant, yeah, Neeta is big shot now.
Yeah, she's celebrity.
You're like, okay.
It's cute because culture is so interesting when you add that flavor into who we are as women. That's why women who are beige, brown, black, generally speaking, we do have that extra layer for so many reasons. Because, you know, if it were someone else, they'd just be like, of course they're on TV, but it's definitely different with us. But I love that you have that in common with me because I feel seen. So going back to what you were saying, because I think this is another area that is so hard for ambitious women, is Ajit and you realizing you need a support squad, right? And can you talk about who is your support squad and like, because it sounds like a non-negotiable for you to be living this life. So can we talk about that?
Yes.
And were there did you have shame or any issues around some of that, if you don't mind sharing
Oh
what you...
my gosh. Yeah, I think I'm still like in it of, you know, because when we're talking about support, and because I don't have my parents around, obviously.
Right.
And so that was a big thing of like, oh, my mom worked a lot to give us the life that we were living. And because she just wanted to keep up with the Joneses, because some of the other, Filipino moms were
That's how Filipinos are, just to let y'all know.
just like, she is doing this, she is doing this.
I look at that one. We have to have that too.
Yeah,
it is. It really is a keeping up with the Joneses culture, whether we like it or not. It really is.
And I think often, I empathize with that whole kind of all of the moms in her community, and everyone was just, doing their best, but many times they did work till burnout.
Yes.
And I feel like now that I know the energetics behind why people get sick and the emotionalities of what are they suppressing, what are they squashing down, what are we not like breathing and actually having dialogue around the difficult conversations that, two people need in a family system to actually say, can we actually do this right now? And what are those like hard conversations to have, which of course, I talk a lot about in my book, to give people permission to say, actually, yeah, I'm not cool with this. And here's maybe a way out. And so I think, looking back for even just where my mom was at the time, where she was trying to do everything. And then for me to start having my own family, and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, she got sick because, maybe she was working herself to the ground and she couldn't ask for help. That was like, she didn't know how to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, okay, I know how to ask for help, and I'm going to ask for help now, right? And so, and that took a lot of pride out of me, and that was just like, I think we have to go into the underbelly of the receiving and the receiving of especially ambitious, powerful women. We're like, all right, we'll do it. I got it. I got all of these things. I got you, and then we're like, oh no, well, who's running ragged at the end of the day?
Right.
I am.
Yeah.
And am I pouring from an empty cup? Yeah. And that pour, that's like a batshit crazy pour.
Yes.
That's like you're ragged, you're resentful, you're anxious, you're irritated, you're all of those things.
Yes.
And nobody wants that. And so I think that really was a shift, especially after me going through like crazy postpartum depression with my first, actually both, but with my first, I was like, oh, people are actually gonna, like, I don't have to be the one to take care of everyone. So that for the first time, I'm like, oh, wow, I can sit back and I can actually heal, physically and all these things. And so that's really what I needed to reconcile, was my worthiness, my worthiness around not doing and actually being for a little bit, which then shifted like, oh, wow, I can actually, somebody else can help me in the ways that I don't need to be there for my child all the time, because I also have dreams. And I think the biggest reframe for me was I never wanted me like 10 years out or 15 years out, when my kid is like a teenager, to guilt my child for having big dreams, big audacious goals, because they need to be next to me all the time. Like I want to be like, fly. And that was the biggest reframe of, you know what, all right, like, okay, yeah, I am going to get support. And this person is going to actually be part of our family. And now, I mean, we have like rotating people in our home, but that's our family support system, because Ajit's parents are in India. And usually in our cultures, we do have the extended family, the aunts, the uncles. So it's like, if you're getting, family support traditionally, great. But if you have like friends like family that's going to support, great. Or if you're going to get paid support in that way and you can do it, great,
Oh my gosh. I just want to say that, like, it's so real, because I grew up in Hawaii, and Hawaii has, since it's a melting pot of ethnicities and very community based, like literally your neighbor 2 blocks down would know who you are. And if you're out too late. And so your mom, your grandma, your dad could know someone's watching you, right? And so when I grew up and had my own children and lived in California, lived in various parts of the US, and then I had kids, I was like, I have no support system because I wasn't living in Hawaii where that's just a natural thing. It's like the coconut wireless, like they call it. And my dad, both my parents are Filipino, but my mom grew up in Hawaii. She was born in Hawaii. And my dad was born in the Philippines. And I remember my dad saying to me one time, because I was early my 20s, I had just had my oldest daughter. And I was like going to be Britney Spears because I heard Britney Spears say, I want to be a young mom. And I was like, if Britney Spears can be a young mom, I can be a young mom. I'm going to be like top of the corporate chain ladder. I'm going to have a beautiful house. I'm going to have a happy marriage, blah, 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 blah. Well, it didn't work out that way. And I remember going to my dad. I was just like fussing, like, this is so hard and da, da, da. And he was in the Philippines at the time. And he said to me, what your problem is, Jenny? He's like, you're living the first world dream and you need to be living the third world dream. And I was like, wait a minute, what'd you say? And he was like, yeah, because my sister lives in the Philippines and she has a nanny for each of her 4 children.
Yep.
She has a driver. She has a cook. And that might sound bougie to some people, but actually what my point is like in countries like where our ethnicity is from, that type of help is part of the culture. It's
part of it already.
It's not where it's like above and below. It's more like this is an ecosystem. And I was like, oh my God, I was so jealous of my sister because she, instead of cooking in the morning, she would have breakfast with her children.
Yep.
Instead of driving them to school, she would be able to sit with them and walk them to class. And she still had a career as a top fashion designer. And I remember this was when we were in our 20s and my dad's like, there you are, like scrubbing in America and maybe you should move over here. And I told him, I go, here's the thing. I don't know if I love the Philippines. And I was like, I don't know if I want to live there, but how can I create my life like that? And I forgot that was my inspiration, but I literally forgot till you just told your story.
No, it's so true.
It's like
we grew up seeing that.
Right.
And yes, it's a privilege, but you could actually create it now we have like Facebook mom groups.
Yes.
And now we can actually share, hey, and I'm the first person, like even in my community in Texas, in Austin, I'm like, if you need my support, like, which is, our nannies, our babysitters, like I've got a Rolodex now and I'm so like, cause I'm like, our date nights are every Thursday. And I'm like, if a babysitter ghosts, which happens, and it happens a lot. I'm like, who else do I have on speed dial? And, getting to know the teenagers in our neighborhood who are a little bit older, like that, it's very, because we don't have, the ohana that you have in Hawaii or even in the Philippines or in India, wherever, like, you live with, it's kind of like you have an au pair situation that lives with you.
You live in a compound almost, like your whole neighborhood is a compound.
With everyone.
Yeah.
But can you actually source it in different ways? And I think the biggest difference is that we try to be in the US, we try to be martyrs. And we're like, I'm going to be super mom because I'm going to do all of it. Because I have the mom guilt that I haven't transmuted yet. And I'm going to try to see how I can overcompensate and do until I like burn the F out. And then we get resentful towards our partner and so yes. When we say yes to the support, how much more can we actually like fly?
And it's worth it because just like you said, I didn't, people have asked me like a million times, literally, maybe not a million, but at least 1,000. If you were to do things over, what would you do again? And honestly, my answer always is I would figure out a way I wouldn't delegate first to my business. I delegate to my personal life more. Yeah. Because when your personal life is in the tank, or I always say there's really no such thing as a business problem. There's only personal problems because those personal problems are what drain you from having the energy to uplift a business. Or even if you're in the corporate world, a different type of career where you have to lead other adults. It's like people don't realize most problems come from us not dealing with what's at home or inside of ourselves, obviously. And so I would totally get a nanny that I trusted. I would pay for that. My best friend even, she had her cousin from the Philippines come over and sponsored her and made her an employee. There's cost in that. Yeah. There's a lot of cost to sponsor a worker from overseas. But oh my God, like what she was able to accomplish because of that. And back then, honestly, I was judging her. I was like, girl, because she's Filipino. I was like, girl, 28 years old and you bring in your cousin from the Philippines, that's shady. You know, like that.
Yeah.
She wasn't doing it under the table. It wasn't like an undocumented thing. She was literally like, there is a process and you can bring workers.
Them.
You can sponsor workers.
Yeah.
And I had that pink slime that I talk about like, but looking like now that I look back and go, gosh, she was so smart.
She's so smart.
You know? And so I just want to say, yes, support.
Absolutely. Whether it's your own family members or it's like family, you know, friends like family.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
Well, what's your advice for women like us who want to be rich, recognized, and respected on their own terms? What's the first step that you would advise them to do to start really owning the fact that they want that?
Yeah, well, start doing the work for yourself and start getting clear, whether it's getting a coach, whether it's doing the deep work of, you know, the traumas of your past, because a lot of times, a lot of the triggers and the self-doubt and the you know, our money mindset stuff, or the fact that we think people are in competition with us, or the comparison-itis, it comes from how we view lack in ourselves. And I think that's the biggest gift I wish I actually had heading into my 20s at 19 years old, you know, getting out of literally, you know, surviving through the teenage time of my life. I didn't really have the mentorship until later on in life. Well, I mean, later on in my 20s when I actually became a dentist. You know, maybe if I had mentorship earlier on, maybe, you know, things could have been different. Maybe I could have not just, you know, jumped into the first relationship that gave me love, because I had my own self-love. And I think so often, you know, for people that look like us, we didn't have that representation. No. So we're grabbing. And I remember, you know, Oprah was like my girl because she was in she was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And she had Harpo Studios, and that was like super close to where my dental school was, in the campus there at UIC. And I was like, oh man, you know, just like remembering that and the way that she would just, you know, give cars to everyone, and like, you know, her generosity and things like that. And it was just like, yeah, but she was Black.
Yes.
Right. Where were the Asian the Asian role models? And I think we're now sitting here, and now we can actually share and pour into the younger generation, who I think, it doesn't have to be that hard, but it's invest in yourself. And take that personal responsibility, so then you can link up in groups like ours. And so maybe that walk doesn't have to be as hard.
Oh, I love that. I just hope, I'm sure you get this from, you know, brown girls. I get messages all the time, especially from Filipino women. Like, I can't believe you're doing this. I've never seen anybody do this. And I forget that I think it's a little sad that we're pioneering that in 2023, which is when we're doing this video. But I'm also super excited about it. So thrilled that we found our way to be able to even turn on a camera and say, hi, we're here. You're going to see us. We right here. Hi. Okay. 100 years old, still looking like this.
Because we don't raise it.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about what's next for you. So what's exciting on the horizon? Of course, you still got this book that's just been rocking and rolling, but like, what's next for you?
Oh my goodness. You know, I'm loving the podcast. I'm loving the Brave Table. I honestly didn't think I would, but I feel like in all of the different ventures that I've been able to do, whether it's create certifications, partner up with different talent, and I think that's the next thing, is like investing in younger talent as well. You know, and I know that we've talked about certain things, and I think that whether it's my love has always been for, you know, the diaspora and our Asian diaspora to really understand the importance of our emotional health.
Yes.
Right. And so our book, That Suck Now What, you know, teaching people how to build audacious resilience, not from a mental toughness point of view, but from a Yes, and like you can be tough and you can be soft at the same time.
Yes.
You know, and to integrate those things in a 360 approach, a wholesome approach where our parents didn't have those tools because they were actually, you know, surviving and trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're actually in a privileged spot where we can actually own the privilege, but say, all right, I'm going to give you these hacks and tools so that you don't have to struggle as much. You don't have to struggle with that identity piece.
Yes.
You can own, because now it's cool to be brown.
Yes, it is.
And it's cool to be Filipino.
Yes,
and it's cool
it
to
is.
be Indian. You know, it's cool. And we're rising in that. And so I think I want to do more around that space. And honestly, yeah, I mean, we've already partnered up with, I think, 6 schools by the time this is recording.
Amazing.
But we're hoping to do, you know, another 10 before the end of the year, and that's universities.
Wow. Thank you for that, because that's the ripple effect that we're trying to do. And I feel like, oh, there's so much I can't wait to do with you too, because it's so fun. So much fun. All right, I'm going to go into the Femmefluence fire round. Ooh. Okay? What's your favorite book?
Ooh, actually, I just read this so powerful, a fiction book that I have not touched fiction in probably since Harry Potter days, from when I was little. And she is this brown author. It's called For My Sister.
Oh.
It's so good. And I'm like, I feel like we should talk about this to like feature, you know, different like Asian authors, fiction, because that's coming up. And I've been just seeing so many different books, you know, for my littles that I'm like, oh, now I want to gift them these kinds of books. So For My Sister.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
It's so good.
Favorite city, state, or country you've ever visited? And I know you've been around the world, girl.
I have been 60 countries. Oh gosh. Italy is my fave.
I gotta tell you that
really
every
is.
single person who sat in this chair said Italy. So I feel like we've got to go on a trip to Italy, because every single one.
Oh my God.
Not even joking.
Okay, but I will say this. I will say Italy, and I will also say Turkey.
Oh, yeah. I've heard Turkey's epic. I haven't been. So.
I will, yeah, Turkey.
Okay. Nike or Adidas?
Nike.
Oh. Someone you'd like to meet or be mentored by, living or not?
I mean, since we were starting with Oprah, I'm just going to go with Oprah.
Yeah.
Mama O.
Yes.
Mama O.
I can see you in her backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One word that sums up who you are right now.
Unapologetic.
I love that. Well, I just want to say that thank you for living a life that's not inherited shame, but instead standing on the shoulders of the sacrifices that your own mom and dad and other ancestors did, so that we could see you shine and that you could pour into us. So thank you so much.
This was amazing. Thanks, Queen.